Hello, my name's Tristan, and welcome to L-Space, or welcome back to L-Space if you're coming back to visit me. I am a little overwhelmed by the fact that the end of the year is honestly a lot closer than it really should be. I feel like I haven't gotten enough done this year, and I feel like it's really kind of slipped away from me in a lot of ways. So, to make it feel like I have some semblance of control over what's going on in my life, I wanted to set down some reading goals to just kind of have a little bit of a tangible way of measuring my ability to, I guess, maybe track time, but also my, that just little bit of gratification that you get when you tick something off of a checklist, right? That's what I'm doing. So I wanted to come up with a list of the books that I would like to read before the end of the year, and I wanted to do like 6 books for the remaining 6 months of the year, but as I think we have figured out, it is August now, and I didn't get around to the video in time, so I'm just going to do a bunch of books that I would like to read before the end of the year. And these are books that I have physically on my shelves, ones that I have available to me immediately. So these, I should also say that in general, I would love to be able to read the Booker long list by the end of the year, but there is absolutely no way that I think I'm going to be able to, be able to carve out enough time to do that, and B, afford that many like brand new books. So we'll see, because a lot of the books that I get, I get on discount, or a lot of the bookstores in and around Boston have these remainder books that are a fraction of their original hardcover price, and several of the ones that I have here are definitely those. And getting things discounted is great. But anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get into the books, because I have a bunch of books that I'm very excited about, and ones that I am very interested in getting to this year. So, let's dive in. The first one is Prophet Song by Paul Lynch. Now, this was last year's winner of the Booker Prize, and of course, if I am setting out to read the Booker Prize, or like the Booker long list for this year, it would make sense that I read the Booker winner from last year, right? I do try to make a point of reading the winner of the Booker Prize every year, and I have just not gotten to this one, with any sense of expediency. I've had it on my shelf for a long time, and be nice to get to it finally, because I know that I'm going to like it, and I know that it's really good. I keep hearing amazing things. I know that Jack Edwards really liked it. His taste and my tastes sort of flip-flop back and forth. I don't always agree with him. But Louise Savage from Louise Savage Muses, her taste and my taste seem to line up perfectly. And she loves this, so I have a feeling I'm going to love this. So we'll find out once I get to it. It's also not terribly long, but I know that it's a dystopian story set in Ireland, and I think it's also a book that's very pertinent to what's going on in the world right now. So that's one that I hope to get to. Sticking with the Booker, I would like to read this year's International Booker Prize winner, Kairos by Jenny Erpenbeck. I am going to say right away, I don't like the American cover. I think that this is quite boring, but this is about a love story between East and West Germany just after the years just after World War II, and there's a pretty strict delineation, bifurcation, etc., demarcation, all of those things in here between the two sides, so it's effective. It's just not particularly eye-catching. This is not something that I would have picked up in the store, especially based on the cover. I think in some respects, this is the kind of cover that would actually repel me, unfortunately, but nonetheless, I'm very interested in reading this book, and I've been hearing a lot of really good things about it as well. Next is Ce que je sais de toi by Eric Chacour. And this is a book that's set in Egypt in, 1980. And it's loosely a love story. It's real gay. I don't know if it is translated into English. It's written in French. And I think that there are a lot of really interesting themes surrounding age, identity, and class. I don't know much else beyond that, but I do know that my friend who gave me this book really, really liked it. So I am very excited to get to it because she really loved it. And, I think she sort of pigeonholed because she's like, this book is gay, so are you. You probably will like it. And, she's not wrong. It's a pretty safe bet. So I am very interested to get to this one. I may actually read this one fairly soon. But yeah, this is definitely one I would like to get to before the end of the year. Next is The Parisian by Isabella Hammad. Now, I have been talking about Isabella Hammad for months, ever since I read Enter Ghost, which is right here. First of all, love how the covers are very similar. Very similar design. Love that. Usually, I hate the color yellow, but I really like how it looks on this book. Don't really know why, but it's very effective for me. This book is about this is Isabella Hammad's debut. It's a bit of a chunk, just like the kitty dog. And this is about a Palestinian man, a man of Palestinian descent, who is living in Paris, as the name would suggest, in, during World War I, and it does kind of his trials, tribulations, studies, adventures, misadventures in love, etc. And I think it goes all the way up to, does it do that? To his return to Palestine at the dawn of its battle for independence. And I absolutely loved Enter Ghost. This is also thematically right up my alley. I am very engaged and very invested in the Palestinian fight for freedom. This book, I think, is going to be a very important work for me to read, as far as engaging in that. And also, it takes place in Paris. It takes place in France. That's what my master's degree is in. Not Paris itself, but French literature. And I think this is really going to scratch an important itch for me. So I'm excited to get to this finally. I think that the length has kind of been putting me off a little bit, but Enter Ghost was so engaging and went by so quickly that I have a feeling I will not have any trouble getting into this, especially given what this book is about. Cool. So that is The Parisian by Isabella Hammad. Very, very excited to get to this one. So I also read Enter Ghost because it was nominated for the Women's Prize. This year I was very interested in the books that were on the Women's Prize shortlist. I didn't actually pay. I don't think I got engaged with the list close enough to when the long list was released to really remember what was on the long list, but I do remember the short list quite well. And of course, I would like to read the winner, and so I will be reading Brotherless Night by Vivi Ganeshananthan, and devastating story about the Sri Lankan Civil War, and just, let's see what we've got here just for like a quick summary. Secret project documenting human rights violations. She embarks on a dangerous path that will change her forever. So that's just that's like the last two little lines of the blurb on the back. And I read The Seven Moons of Mali Almeida, which was the Booker Prize winner for 2022, and that's also set in the same sort of period. And well, no, I'm sorry. That one is set more contemporarily than perhaps this one, because this is 1981, and yeah, anyway, doesn't matter. it's all orbiting around the same conflict, and I loved that book. That book was very much a Tristan book because it has and a fascinating and thoughtful discussion about death and mortality and just the purpose of life and art and love, identity, all of those things that just I love it. Also, it was gay, but that was just kind of a cherry on top to everything. This, I'm interested to read another perspective on the Sri Lankan Civil War because it's a pretty gruesome situation back when that was going on, and I think there's still a lot of fallout in relation to that's being dealt with today. But anyway, really excited for this one. I have no idea when I'll get to it, but the idea is before December 31st, 2024, which is coming up too quick. The next book is another long one. It's one that I've started. It's one that I am very much enjoying, but it is one that has gotten kind of just sidelined a little bit in favor of some other reading goals, reading projects, and then also my thesis project. And that is Hours by Phillip Williams. I have also been talking about this one for months, ever since I bought it. I think that the first time it appeared on this channel was May or June, the beginning of June. And here we are in August. Like I said, I've already started this one, so the likelihood of me actually finishing this one soon is pretty high. But this is all about a conjure woman who is using conjure and magic to destroy plantations and set people free, but then they all end up kind of getting trapped in this magical community that she creates. And it is a long meditation on freedom, what freedom costs, what freedom means, and it's a really cool book. And also, the writing is phenomenal. Just absolutely incredible. I respect Phillip B. Williams so much, and if you read this, you will too. Probably. It might not be for everyone, but it is definitely for me. Next is another French book, and that is Pot-Bouille by Emile Zola. I think this is translated to Potluck, and you can find you can easily find translations to this book. Oxford World Classic, translated by Brian Nelson. He does a fantastic job of translating Zola's work. This is all about one of the brand shiny new. Let me get my adjectives correct in the right order. Shiny, brand new apartment building in the Haussmann style during the Haussmann reforms and the big restructuring, rebuilding of Paris during the 19th century. And this is got a bunch of scandal and really kind of gross side of humanity, and Zola is just kind of great at all of that. His most comparable equivalent in the English canon would be Charles Dickens. Both of them wrote their novels in serial form, so they would write chapter by chapter, publishing in the newspapers, etc. And Zola, if you ever watched Shameless, the one that I watched is the American version. I know there's a British version. But anyway, his writing is kind of a lot like Shameless, in that you have these people that have these inherent flaws that just continually drag them down and end up being their demise in a lot of ways. You think they're going to be successful in things, but then heredity or just inherent behavior comes to bite them in the butt, and that's just kind of what happens. So that's a lot of what happens in Zola's work. They're not all very cheery, very happy, but they're nonetheless quite fun to read, and there's a little bit of comedy in some of them. So again, think Charles Dickens. You're probably not going to be too far off if you compare him to Charles Dickens, because he's quite similar. So that is Pot-Bouille by Emile Zola. I am very excited to read this one because I love his work and I spent a lot of my master's degree studying him. So the next book relates to a just kind of general interest of mine. I really like the intersection of light, art, life, and culture. I am a huge consumer of art, obviously, considering how many books I have and how many books I read. Literature, obviously, is a form of art. But I also really love painting. Painting is kind of the main form of visual art that I am most drawn to. I also, of course, like photography. I don't super care that much about sculpture, and like that's, you know, it's fine, it's cool. I respect it. There's nothing wrong with it for sure. But anyway, and I was really excited to see that this September there's a reading event called Framed in September, and it's an art readathon. So to get in the spirit of that, I'm going to read Painting American, which is just it's a history book. It's a nonfiction that chronicles the rise of American artists, and this is by Annie Cohen-Solal, and yeah, I think I'm really interested in learning more about American artists, American painters mostly because I have been introduced to a lot of the work of like Whistler and Singer Sargent and Winslow Homer. Those particular painters I'm very interested in learning more about, and because of my proximity to them, because I live right now in Boston, and so I have access to a lot of their work at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, the Harvard Art Museum, or the museums, and also the Museum of Fine Arts here in Boston. So there's a lot of art here, and I am very fortunate to be able to go to those quite frequently, as well. Not frequently recently, but frequently historically for my time here. And I would like to learn more about the art movements, the artists here in America. I don't super care about anything that comes, you know, like, I really am like an early 1900s, late 1800s. Impressionism, the best. My favorite, love that. When we start getting into like surrealism and then abstract stuff, I couldn't care less. So I may skip around a little bit in this one. Will I finish the whole thing? TBD. We'll see. But the things of like a canvas of red and calling it like summer sunset, and it evokes the red dread that I get at the closing of the day. You know, that stuff I couldn't care less. Like, I teach preschool. I see kids I see 4-year-olds making the same art every day, and, you know, does that kind of stuff deserve to be in a museum? No. But anyway, maybe controversial opinion, that's fine. Will I gatekeep in this respect? Yes. So I am curious to learn more about the people and the minds behind it, and yeah. I like art. And I have a lot of opinions about it, clearly. Okay, next is a book by an author that I talked about in my French book recommendations video. I'll link that one down below. Also, really quick, let's go back to the the channel that I got the framed in September readathon from. Her name is Hannah. She has a really great channel, and I will link it down below. Definitely check that one out. I believe it's just like Hannah Reads. It could be, I'm sorry, Hannah, that I'm not remembering exactly what your channel is called. My brain is not exactly that good at that sort of thing, but your channel will be linked in the description box. So those of you who aren't Hannah and you are not familiar with her channel, you should definitely go check it out. Okay. Because she's one of the ones that's hosting it, and there's quite a few others that are hosting it. I will link that video in the description as well. Anyway, moving along. Digressions, that's super fun. So, yes, another author that I mentioned in my French literature, French books in translation video, and that is going to be Maryse Conde, who is a Guadeloupean author, and this is The Wondrous and Tragic Life of Ivan and Ivana. And this book is wild when you listen to this. Born in Guadeloupe, Ivan and Ivana are twins with a bond so strong they become afraid of their feelings for one another. When their mother sends them off to live with their father in Mali, they begin to grow apart, until, as young adults in Paris, Ivana's youthful altruism compels her to join the police academy, while Ivan walks the path of radicalization. The twins, unable to live either with or without each other, become perpetrator and victim in a wave of violent attacks. In The Wondrous and Tragic Life of Ivan and Ivana, her most modern novel to date, Maryse Conde, winner of the 2018 Alternative Nobel Prize in Literature, offers an impressive picture of a colorful yet turbulent 21st century. And I feel like that really speaks for itself. You don't really need my commentary on that. I want to read this so bad. So I know that Women in Translation Month is coming up. Is it August? We'll double check. So I will probably read this for Women in Translation Month and definitely be promoting this. We got a lot of books. Next is a book by one of my favorite authors, and that is The Longest Journey by Ian Forster. This is a classic. It's one of his more perplexing novels, I think, but one of the ones that he was most proud of. I really love Howard's End, Morris, A Room with a View, and of course, A Passage to India. I love all of those novels. I would love to read all of his work because I find him so fascinating, and the fact that his life as a more or less openly queer man in the 20th century, just like the entirety of the 20th century, is just fascinating. I read his biography that sort of like centers his queerness, and it's really, really good. It's called A Great Unrecorded History by Wendy Moffat. You should definitely check that one out. But anyway, The Longest Journey is just, it sounds super cool. Okay, next is Lessons by Ian McEwan. And I read, or did I watch something that was based on an Ian McEwan novel. But I think it's also because one of my good friends from when I was doing my master's degree, he was in the Masters of Fine Arts in Creative Writing program. He really likes Atonement by Ian McEwan and just loves his writing in general. I've also heard him recommended on Raspberry Reads. Catherine was recommending one of his books, and I've just never read any of his stuff, but I have always been a little curious. And this one in particular sounds pretty cool. Let's look at what it says. So when the world is still counting the cost of the Second World War and the Iron Curtain has descended, young Roland Bain's life is turned upside down. He's 2,000 miles from his mother's protective love, stranded at an unusual boarding school, when his vulnerability attracts his piano teacher, Miriam Cornell, leaving scars as well as a memory of love that will never fade. There's a lot going on in this book from what I remember about kind of reading further, but just to give you just a very brief snippet about what it's about, that's what that was. But I am super curious to read this one, and I know that people generally really like it, so I don't think that I will be having any problems starting with this particular one of his. But also it's a really cool cover. Like, it's great color design, great images. It's really cool. And also the concept of just lessons, because that means more than just, piano lessons. So that one's pretty high up there on my priority list. Many of you will probably have noticed that the Booker Prize list for 2024 features a lot of books that are like post-war and dealing with themes surrounding war. And I have always been really interested in books that take place either during war or, in the events surrounding them. And so for that reason, I have picked up The Book at War. And this is how reading shaped conflict and conflict shaped reading. And this is basically just a nonfiction that chronicles how books and literature were affected and how they affect warfare. Not warfare necessarily, but just like the practice of war. And I am so interested in this. Now, obviously, I don't like war. I think war is very stupid, but I'm very curious, very interested in how we get to that point and the things that go on during that whole time. So this is definitely one that I'm curious about. And again, I think I mentioned this in the last video, that there's a certain writing project that may see the light of day at some point that I would like to write myself, that's set kind of in the World War One. This I think will be helpful for me to do that. So that is The Book at War by, oh my gosh, I didn't say who it was by Andrew Pettegree. Last, but certainly not least, we have The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. This is a literary thriller that seems to have a lot of the booktubers whose opinions I trust implicitly in a chokehold, and they are very much enjoying it, very enthralled by it. I was really lucky to find this on sale at the airport. Now, normally, airports are not where you buy books because everything in the airport is like 60% more expensive than anywhere else. But not this. There was a I think it's called Authors, but anyway, I think it's like an offshoot of Hudson News or whatever. And they were having a sale on hardcover books, certain hardcover books, and this is one of them, that they were selling the hardcover at paperback price, like normal paperback price. So I bought this, which is a, what, $30 book, and I got it for $19, which, wild. So super excited about that, because I was dreading having to wait for the paperback, and I was also dreading the fact that it was possible that the cover could change, because like this is so cool. I love the just like artificial, super digital generated looking pink smudge on this classical painting, and it's just it's so cool. But yeah, this is all about kind of getting lost in the woods. There's characters that go missing, weird things starts happening, and yeah, I am excited to figure out who the God of the Woods is. It's a very haunting title too. I am a little apprehensive because this is from Riverhead Books, and Riverhead Books and I don't really get along. So if I hate it, I'm gonna just assume that that's why. But I'm gonna reserve my judgment until I actually start reading. But anyway, so that is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. So those are I think it ends up being like 12 or 13 books that I would like to read by the end of the year. They are all books that have been kind of on my radar as well as on my shelf for a long time. Really, a lot of them, at least for the majority of 2024. So I am excited to finally get to them and put them from my TBR to my R list, because, that's always the goal. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of them, or if there's ones that you're excited about reading. Definitely let me know down in the comments, as it's always appreciated. And until that point, I will be making more content surrounding my reading and impressions of the Booker long list for 2024 as I get those books and start reading from them. So until then, I will wish you well. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye.